everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Mariana and here I interview the brightest minds of physical therapy. So if you want to increase your knowledge and be a better physical therapist, start right now by subscribing to this channel and clicking on the bell so you don't miss anything. And give us a thumbs up and be sure to share this video with people that you think you would also benefit from learning from the best PTs out there. Today our guest is Dr. Eduardo Correa, and he talks about his McKenzie diploma program and also about his immigration process and how he got his license to work as a PT in Canada. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Eduardo, welcome to PT Pro Talk. How are you feeling today?
Hi Mariana, great. How about you?
I'm good. I'm in Florida right now, so I can't be any better.
Awesome.
So, Eduardo is a Brazilian that works in Canada, and today he's going to talk a little bit about his story. So, Eduardo, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your career, and how did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah. So, I'm a 43-year-old Brazilian. I was born and raised in São Paulo. The last 6 years I was living in Brazil. I lived in Salvador, Bahia, where I finished my studies. I started my studies in physio in São Paulo. Then I transferred to a university in Bahia, in Salvador, finish up, and then I worked there for 3 years. I worked in private practice, and I had this volunteer work that I had in manual therapy in a public hospital in Salvador. I worked there twice a week, half-time and part-time, and I did that for 3 years, and then after 3 years, I immigrated here to Montreal, where I had to go through an equivalence process to get my license and work as a physiotherapy. And I've been here for the past 10 and a half years now. I have 2 kids, 2 little Canadians. They were both born in here in Canada. And I'm married to a physiotherapist too that works in cardio-RESP it's the Cardiology Institute of Montreal. And we met also in university, so we're
Nice.
University sweethearts.
Nice. That's cool. That's exciting. And so you just mentioned that you had to get your license in Canada.
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit how was this process, like everything that you had to do to get your license?
Yeah. I don't know if it's still like up to date, the process, but back then when I started, what you had to do is you get all the description of your curriculum. You translate that to French because I'm living in Montreal and the official language is French. So you translate it to French and you send to what they call the physiotherapy order, which is, I think it's the parallel to the PTA and the Crefito in Brazil. So you send them on and they will analyze it. They will take a look and they will compare to the Canadian standards of practice. And then I will see how many hours you did of this, the electrotherapy, manual therapy, pain, physiology, and etc. And then they will compare to the standard. And they will see what it's missing on your curriculum to be equivalent to the Canadian standards. And then they determine how many credits you shall take and which matter you shall take. And you need to do some the
internship, maybe?
Internship, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You have to do internship. I had to do 2 courses, and that's another thing though. The professional order determines what you have to do, but it doesn't say at which level. So they say orthopedics, but you go to McGill University, you have orthopedics 1, 2, and 3. So then you have to take a placement test, and then that placement test will tell you where you're gonna pick up from. I was excused from orthopedics, but the order asked me neurology and psychotherapy. I don't even know why. Yeah. So I went to McGill University. Well, they asked me for psychotherapy. They said, well, we don't offer that course in here. I said, oops, I think we have a problem now. And said, no, just take anything that fulfill those credits. You shall be fine. I said, okay, I'll take orthopedics because, I'm an orthopedic guy. Should be easy breezy. So I went there and I took the placement test. So I was placed in orthopedic 3. I also took a neurology test and I was placed in neurology 2, which they had only 2. So my equivalence was very quick. I did 2 courses. Then I was lucky enough to have one in fall and the other one right in spring, so it was one after the other. Then I did my 2 internships that was the requirement, and 7 months later I had my license. So that was pretty quick.
No, yeah, that's awesome. It looks like my process.
Yeah, but you know what?
No.
There was a lucky shot because most of people take like 3 years. They have to wait. I don't know what was the thing, but my process went just like flashing speed, really quick.
Nice. Yeah, so like I'm a Brazilian as well, and then I had to get my license in US. It took me almost 3 years to get my license. So it was a long process. I had to do the same thing, translate everything to English and then submit so they could tell me what I was missing. And then it was quick. I just had to do like 3 subjects that I did online. It was super quick and easy, nothing crazy. And then I had to do like a humanities class. I took like a Spanish. I was like, probably it's easier for us that we speak Portuguese as the first language. And then I had to prove experience that I proved from Brazil. So I didn't have to do the internship. But then it's just a lot of bureaucracy, and they took 6 months just to the first evaluation to analyze all my papers and everything. And then after all, you still have to do the bar test that every American needs to pass it after college. So then I studied to this test, and then it was more time waiting around than actually doing. It just takes too long.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you. 7 months. That's pretty quick.
It was pretty quick, but one thing that I think that speed up things, it was that I went to this English-speaking university. So most of people, when they come here to Montreal, to Quebec, because the immigration process, it's particular to Quebec. It's not like it's federal government. Mm-hmm. It's a provincial government that determines the immigration process. So most people that come to here, they come already speaking French. So the waiting list for the University of Montreal, which is a French-speaking university, it's huge. My wife waited about that 2.5 years before she started her equivalent. So that is one thing that counted on my favor. Another thing is that I started the process when I was already in Brazil. In 2009, I took a trip here to Montreal because I didn't want to just come here to a place I've never been, don't know anything. So I came for like exploratory kind of trip. So, and I set up a meeting with the coordinator of people that wants to do those equivalents, the immigrant or foreign physiotherapist. I set up a meeting with her, and I took everything, all my documentation, said, what really matters here? Because I didn't want to spend, all thousands and thousands of dollars on useless stuff. So I sat down with her and said, what really matters here? So we spent like a couple hours, and she was really nice. She took a look at all my stuff, said, no, that we don't need it. That we don't need it. So I ended up having only half of stuff to translate, which was a huge change on our budget. It was awesome, really. It was already worth the trip, the tickets and everything else. So that was one thing. And another thing that kind of sped up to the things is that the McGill University also allowed me to have a meeting with the coordinator. So I said, what do I need to do? Can I do anything before I come here? She said, well, there's not really much to do before you get the response from the order. But I went back to Brazil. That was in 2009. I went back to Brazil. Maybe, I don't know, 6 months later, I got the decision from the order. But it was still like maybe 7 months until I moved in here. So I contacted my guy and said, what can I do from here already? They allowed me to do tons of stuff like documentation that they needed, separate everything, send. So I guess when I got there, my place in the waiting list had already advanced. So I think it was just a combination of lucky shots and timing.
Yeah, and that was smart. I did as well. I started in Brazil before I moved here, but it's just a lot. I feel that it's a lot of time consuming processing everything. And also another part that I think it's very difficult for foreign trained PTs is the English part, because it depends on the state. Every state they have different rules. But like on my state, Tennessee, they ask for the TOEFL, a very specific, like the speaking part of the TOEFL, you had to get a super high score, like 26 out of 30,
Yeah.
for them to start looking at your document. So if you don't get this score, they don't even like look at everything. So so if you are moving and you don't know a lot of English and never lived abroad, it takes a while until you get used to, and it's not something that you can learn really quick.
Yeah, that's true.
It takes time. You have to practice. You have to live and experience and try to talk to people. So that was a huge thing, I guess, for me in the beginning, because I needed to get this score. I was like, I have to improve my English. And
wow, what a challenge, Mariana.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of steps. But finally we are here, right?
There you go. Look at us now.
Yeah,
Right?
Nice. And about the immigration part that you mentioned, so how did that work in Canada?
Oh, that was an ordeal. As I said, it was a Quebec-specific thing. We were planning to go to Australia. That was the first idea. But it was tough because the equivalence, we would have to pay international student tuition, which is super expensive. And before we even planned to apply for immigration status. So it was a tough thing, and we gave up. We said, we've given up. And then one day, out of the blue, my mom comes in my room and said, look at that. The Quebec's government has someone in here today and tomorrow explain an immigration process. Apparently, physiotherapy is on the waiting list, on the wanting list. They need that kind of professional. I said, that looks like a scam. It can't be that easy. I said, I think it's a scam. She said, well, my mom said, well, what do you have to lose? Just go there, man. You're smart. You're not going to fall for a scam. I said, yeah, that's true. So I went there, and my now wife, back then girlfriend, went with me, and it didn't look like a scam at all. It was super organized and all, but all scams are super organized, right? And then when we left, it was like, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm so excited. We're going to enroll in a French course tomorrow. And my wife was like, ooh, but what if it's a scam? That's true. So we went online and we did a research. Does the government of Quebec look for professionals abroad? And then, yes, we started popping up information that was a real deal. So we said, oh, that's pretty cool. And then we started collecting information. And this time, where we had all the documentations, and we sent it off to the immigration office that they have in South America, which then was in Buenos Aires. We sent it off, and they closed down, out of the blue, they closed down the office and said, we're going to transfer to Sao Paulo. And all the process that are now, we're going to put on a backlog. And we don't know how long. And we were like, oh. Usually the process will take like 18 months. And 18 months passed, and we didn't have any news. And we were like, oh, man, what's going on? So we started writing emails and calling and being, anxious and trying to find out information. And they were like, well, the max we can give is that it's a backlog, and it's going to take maybe twice as long. It's like, okay. And well, long story short, it took 3 years for us. And after 3 years, we got what they call the Certificate of Quebec that allows you to stay here in Quebec and live in Quebec and have all the rights, just like if you were a Quebecer. But you cannot vote, and you do not have the parallel what is the green card for you guys. You do not have the citizenship. Well, what we have, sorry, let me rephrase that. What we have is a green card for Quebec. What we don't have is the citizenship. You have to live 3 years out of 5 having that sort of green card to apply for citizenship. So we did that, and 3 years more, a little 4 years, because we went to Brazil a couple of times, so that time is deducted to the whole time. And after that, we applied for citizenship, and now we are Brazilian Canadians.
Nice, very cool. So they were looking for a specific type of professionals, including physical therapists. So that's why they gave you permission to live there. Yeah,
no, actually it's open for anyone. The process, anyone can apply, but it's a system of points. So work experience, and some professions, they count more points because they're in demand. They don't have enough people to fulfill the job.
Yeah, so I think here works similar. They give green cards to physical therapists, but you have to pass through like a long process, and it's a little bit harder. You need like a different type of certificate. So you have to have more credits. You have to have the equivalence to the doctorate, which changed just now 1 or 2 years ago. So it's possible. It just takes a lot of time, and they require a lot of subjects and like all the credits, more than like if you don't need the immigration part of the process. So like, yeah, I didn't need to pass through the immigration process because my husband is American. So for me, it was a little bit quicker on that part. So imagine if you have to have the immigration part and then the professional part. Yeah, it takes a while, but it's not impossible. They still give green cards to physical therapists that complete the whole process. Yeah.
Nice.
And you did everything from Brazil. We have to wait in Brazil, the immigration part of the process.
Everything I did from Brazil, and I waited in there before I moved in, because it takes lots of money too, right? So I mean, I was working hard in Brazil, trying to put some money aside. So, you know, because I knew the first year at least was going to be very rough, because I wouldn't work as a physio. I would have to work as a, minimum wage. So I knew it was going to be a rough year. So we had to put all money possible aside to make that thing work. It was a very planned out thing, though. I'll tell you that. That 3 years that eventually, because it was 18 months, and all of a sudden was 3 years. But it wasn't. Now looking back at that hindsight, it was not a bad thing, though, because it helped us to plan it better. You know. So I think the immigration process is only successful if you do all your research, if you plan it out really well.
Yeah, plan in advance. I did the same. Yeah. It took me 2 years to really like, okay, now let's do it. I was researching and doing everything. And it's smart to start from Brazil, because then what you're going to do in the other country, just spending money in dollars, and it doesn't make any sense. You can work. So what you're going to do,
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so that's a good tip for the ones that are thinking about
plan it
starting
out,
the process.
Wait until it's a sure thing, and then you go on board in a plane, and then you fly in, because otherwise it's just
you have to be sure that you're able to make some money, because otherwise you can survive for a long time spending our poor Brazilian reais
in dollars. That's smart.
And Eduardo, I'm curious about the Canadian health system. I heard many things, and I was just trying to understand a little better. So how that works are like big companies that hire physical therapists, which is more common, like just private practice, seeing patients one-on-one, paying out of their pockets, or is the insurance big? How everything works there?
It's very different than how it works for you guys in the South there in the States. In here, you have two systems, private and public. Most of the things it's private. It's public, sorry. The public system, you have a surgery, it's paid for. Medication, most of it's paid for. It's a good system, but it's overwhelmed system. So if you have let's say an ankle sprain, and you go to the hospital and say, oh, I have a referral for physiotherapy or for physical therapy, that's how you call it there, right? And here's physiotherapy, not physical therapy. So I had the referral for it, and secretary will look, okay, we'll call you when you have a spot. That spot will take about a year to show up.
Oh, wow.
There's a huge waiting list. So that's where the private sector profits out of. You cannot have, now you do have some doctors that work in the private, but there's no surgery procedures done in the private. It's all in the public. Only consultations can be done privately, and physiotherapists too. So I work in a private clinic. My wife works in a hospital. The private clinic, how we work, it's mainly reimbursement from insurances, but it's not that crazy thing as it is in the state that you have to document all the modalities and each one has a code and you have to charge a. It's not like that. listen, my session is $100. Okay, my insurer is covered 80%. So I'll give you $80 and my insurer has to pay you 20. Fine. That's how it's done, and it's done there. The secretary just does a thing on the computer and then deducts whatever the patient is covered by, and the patient pays the difference, and I get my money 15 days later.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's very
so
simple. Very
so simple comparing to us here.
Because the burden falls on the patient, not on us. My session is $100. You want to come see me? It's $100. So if you're going to pay out of your pocket, then you're going to ask your insurance. If your insurance accepts that we do it here online and you pay the difference, if you're not covered 100%, they usually have there's different insurers, right? So in different plans as well. So there's some people in good companies with good jobs, they have 100% and no budget. They can use physiotherapy as many sessions as they would like. And you have those that they are covered, let's say 50%, I think is the minimum, and they have a budget, let's say $1,000 a year. So you have to play smart with that. But even then, $50, $1,000, like 20 sessions. That's quite a chunk, right? So that's how pretty much it works. If you want to go in the public, you will have it, but you're gonna have to wait, and quite a long time. And that's done in the hospitals. If you want to right away, you can go see a physiotherapist, which is direct access. We do not need a medical referral for the insurance to cover. Patients come, and we just charge the insurers. No need to see the doctor first. And it's a good thing because we're there also to unburden the system, right? So if you have to pass to the doctor to see a physiotherapist, it will overwhelm even more the health system. So the goal is to kind of unburden the system. We have this kind of physiotherapists now that they're training. There's a pilot project done here in Quebec where we'll be able to prescribe image studies, some sort of medications, renew other types of medications. You have to go through a course, but it's coming because the whole goal is that we can be an unburdened a buffer for the health system.
That's pretty cool because here direct access, it depends on each state. In Tennessee is like partial, so you can see the patients like couple times, or I think, I don't remember the number exactly of visits, maybe 6 visits or a month, whatever comes first, and then you need the referral. So you are still depending on the patients having the referral. And here I feel that is most of the patients, they go to these big companies. At least in Nashville, there are just few private practice. So that was like another question that I wanted to ask you. So do you feel that the patients, they go and they are willing to pay private, or most of the patients just wait on the list to have the public treatment?
If they have the means to, they're willingly paying for. Physiotherapy it's highly seen here. People have kind of high regards for the profession, the society in general. So yeah, they willingly come, and even sometimes when they expire the insurance or they have a different injury, they will, if you do a good job, obviously, you know, if there's results in it, they will come. The problem falls the same way it falls anywhere. There's good clinics and bad clinics, right? Anywhere. So there's the clinics that keep you there for ages, and there's the clinic that said, listen, nah, it's not working, we need to do something else with your dog, something like that. If they fall on the good clinics, yeah, they willingly come. If they fall on the bad clinic, yeah, they're gonna have a bad experience, and then, you know, they're probably gonna start chiropractic.
And usually they can get the reimbursement from the insurance. Is that common? Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
very easily.
It makes their lives easier and the PT's lives easier as well.
Yeah. I don't get much involved on that because I work in a small practice, right? So you were talking about big companies. There are big companies. What they're doing, they're buying small clinics or small chains of clinics. Like I worked in one that they had 20 clinics, 20 small clinics spread around Montreal. Now this big clinic came from Toronto and bought the whole company. So the 20 clinics. I work now in a very small clinic. So things are simpler, right? I don't touch money. I swear to God, and that's no lying here. If you ask me how much it's charged a session in the clinic, I'm not sure. I think it's 90 or 100. I'm not sure. I swear to God, I'm not sure.
Which is nice. You can spend all your time and energy on your patients. You don't
That's
have to
all I
worry
do.
about like all this part.
Yeah, and I work for very honest people, so I don't even check if they're paying me correctly or not. I know it is correct. So I decided that my focus needs to be what I'm trained for, which is seeing patients.
Yeah,
And
that's very
this
nice.
clinic allows me to do that.
So talking about the Brazil, we know that we have the public system as well, that people have to wait for a long time
Right.
to see a physical therapist. So do you think that would be like a big difference, like between Brazil and Canada? Not a big difference, but comparing both systems, what do you think that is similar or different?
Honestly, Mariana, I can't give an honest opinion about it because first, I never worked for the public system in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
All I know about the public system in Brazil, I come, as I imagine you probably come too, from a privileged family, right? Where we had insurance. So
Yeah.
I never had to go to see a doctor in the public hospital and wait. So I was very fortunate to have a family that was able to provide a better life, that I didn't have to expose myself to that kind of endeavor, which it is going to the public hospital and having assistance in our country, right? So my opinion is very biased, and I don't want to seem that I'm giving an opinion that might hurt some people that are within the system, because I have no idea how it is. All I know it's true, how we know by the papers, by the news, the chaotic system and all, but I have never experienced the public system in Brazil. So I guess my opinion is very, very biased.
Yeah, and I'm trying just to compare between all countries. Here in US, I don't think we have a public system for physical therapists. I may be wrong, but
I had the chance to work in Austin, right, for a bit when I was doing my diploma program. And no, in there's there's volunteer works, right? Institutions that do volunteer work as an assistant kind of a system, but there's nothing established by the government to offer physiotherapy for free. There's some free clinics for doctors, right? But there's no free clinics for physiotherapists, as I understand.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that as well.
That's an interesting thing. You know what's the first thing I noticed my first week when I was in Austin? I saw more post-op of the spine in my first week in Austin that I saw in my first 7 years here in Canada. Oh. And for me in my head, there's a very simple explanation for that. In the States, medicine is a business, and in here is a public affair. So the government's not going to spend money on things that are proven not to work. So if you're going to fall on a table to operate your spine, you better be on a wheelchair, having your foot dropping, losing urine, stuff like that. Or we're not operating on you because there's a chance you're going to be worse or stable. And you're not going to spend $100,000 in a surgery that's not going to get people more function.
Yeah.
That was my conclusion of that. I was very impressed. And some of my patients, they came for a post-op, or for pain in the back. It's not even a post-op because the surgery had gone a long time, but they often had the fusions in the neck, in the back. So it's a business.
It's common.
And every time business mixed up with health, things tend to not turn out well, in my opinion.
And you know how hard it is to treat the patients that get their back fused. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a system. Wow.
I have a brother in Brazil that did 8 surgeries in the back, and that's most of my interest for the spine comes out of that. And he had an infection. So all the spectrums of red flags that you can think, except fracture, he had it. So my interest from the spine really came out of that. It was my last year in school, as my brother experienced that for the first time. And people don't tell you, they don't educate you enough to be able to take that decision to, okay, I'm ready, I want that surgery, right? My brother didn't have constant leg pain, didn't have any clear neurological symptoms. Looking back now, I didn't know anything back then.
Yeah.
Didn't have major hallmarks that he needed to have to follow on a surgery. Then he got an infection. So maybe a spondylodiscitis would make things way worse. All the hardware had to be picked out. But you're not told. You're not told that you may get an infection. People just assume that you know that, but people don't know that. They don't tell you that, yes, we're going to fuse your segments, and you may have less pain, but you may have a harder time. Put your shoes on, put your pants on, put your underpants on. They don't prepare you psychologically for that. So I think a lot of pain is persistent at a surgery because of all the difficulties they find out they're facing then. They're all related, and it sucks, honestly.
Education, right? Education, everything. So now you just start talking about the physical therapy part of our conversation. So imagine if they just pass, if your brother just passed through a simple mechanical assessment, and how many other patients that probably would be able to avoid the surgery passing through this screening.
And you know what's the fault of the physiotherapy there? Is that society doesn't know us in Brazil. So my brother never had one session, not even TENS, ultrasound. He didn't have a session before the doctor offered him surgery.
That's crazy, right?
So
it's crazy.
It's just crazy. I find it crazy, really. You know, so you know, then ends up the way he ends up usually, right? As the patients we see and all, it doesn't end up well, unfortunately, for most of them, and for at least, as research brings, for at least 50% of them. It's high numbers we're talking here.
Yeah.
And it's lives, right? So I don't know.
And so you mentioned about your diploma here in US. So how did you start getting involved in McKenzie? How that happened, and then like why did you decide to do the diploma?
I am at the base of my career. I'm a manual therapist. Sorry, I did a certification with a big Australian institute. I did post-grad courses, as we call in Brazil, in manual therapy. I did tons and hundreds of hours of Maitland and Mulligan's and all those things. But everybody else in Bahia was doing that, right? So I was doing the same thing as everybody. And I was like, well, what is out there that it's a little different than what people are doing here? And I had been superficially in touch with the McKenzie, with the MDT approach in school, but because there was a book in there that I was a good student. I read a lot through my years, and I was usually in the library looking at books, and I crossed this. I remember it was a sports therapy book. Adams was the author. I forgot the name. It was a green old book, and that was McKenzie. There was still the old classification, the arrangement 1, 2, 3, 4, and etc. But I thought, well, that's interesting, but never took much interest on that after that book. So I had that superficial contact, and I said, well, there was that McKenzie guy. Is there anyone teaching that in here? And then I found online that there was a McKenzie Institute Brazil. I was like, well, that's pretty interesting. I'm going to do a course. So I traveled to Brasilia and took my first part A with Jose. And Jose, I'm pretty sure he hated my guts in my first course because, well, first of all, I'm a very inquiring guy and I don't shy myself. And I was a manual therapist, right? So how can you tell me that I do all this, and that, and I still am struggling with my patients, and you just do that or this or that, and the patients get better? And one thing that struck me was, he was not only about what he was talking, right? They bring patients in, and it's not like manual therapy courses. Usually it's like, does anybody have a back pain in there? Does anybody have a shoulder pain? We're all physiotherapists. We're all biased. Of course, we're looking at that guy that published tons of articles. We're like, oh, right. And he mobilizes, like, yeah, great. But it's so biased because we're therapists, right? We've never seen them assessing and treating real patients throughout the days of the course, having follow-ups. And then it was something like, okay, this is how it works. And I'm going to show you. You put in all those questions. I may don't have the answers, but hold on. Let's see a patient here. And then throughout the course, throughout the 4 days course, seeing the patients, following up the patients, I was like, oh my God, that's pretty cool. So I had, remember, I had this 2.5 days a week. I was having this volunteer work at the public hospital in Salvador, Bahia. And I talked to, my professor was Paulo Lessa, which is a guy that does also McKenzie. And I was like, Paulo, I did this course, man, and it's something really interesting. And Paulo at the time, he was an osteopath, right? So he didn't want to even hear much about it. He was like, yeah, right, Eduardo, do whatever you want. I don't care. And left. But one thing that he did, and it's true, he mentioned that, and he started giving me the hard patients. The patients nobody wanted. Go see Eduardo. Go see Eduardo. Which sucked because I was a new grad, right? I had just graduated and I had these courses and I was seeing those patients. But that was like a light speed growth and I started getting results. But what motivated me, Mariana, was just like kind of a Mr. Smith story. I had this patient, the first patient I saw, or second, something like that. Like in this first day I was in the clinic, I saw this patient. And he told me, I was like, what gets better, what gets worse, right? And he was like, man, lots of things gets me better, but there's one thing that, lots of things gets me worse, but there's one thing that gets me better. So what is that? I lie on my stomach and my kid sits on my back. It was like, oh, that's that little overpressure that Jose was doing. That's nothing more than that overpressure. I was like, okay, let's do it. Bang, centralization. And I was like, oh, that cannot be. And I was very gutsy. So I said, let's do some flexion. Bring your knee to your chest. And then the guy got pain on the cuff. And he was like, no, I'm getting pain on the cuff. And it's like pretty bad. Can you take it off? And I was like, oof, I don't know. Well, let's try. Go again. Boom, boom, over pressure. Centralize the game. I was like, wow, there's really something to it. I guess that if I did not have had that experience, there I'll probably have dropped and go back to my old manual therapy thing. So I started investing a little more. I won't say that I started being a purist and I started doing all McKenzie right after, but I found it was interesting. And I started applying more, implying into different types of treatments and do my manual therapy more oriented based on my McKenzie mechanical assessment of direction of preference. So I would only mobilize in the extension for those that responded to. And little by little, that manual therapy and skills and techniques start to fade away because I start to feel that they didn't need it anymore. So I start being more of a McKenzie therapist, and that's it. And I only got to be a purist when I work in a certified McKenzie clinic. So that's what we do day in, day out. We're not even allowed to do other stuff unless you're a mechanically conclusive or an MUR or any of the other classifications. Then you can do whatever the literature brings as evidence. But we do day in, day out McKenzie assessments, mechanical treatments. And I'm a purist now. For a while, before even that clinic, I was being a purist only for the spine. It took me a great chunk of time before I did my extremity courses because there was not much evidence, which is still true, right? There's not much evidence. It's growing, but still not there like in the spine, right? There's a lot of work to be done. So I was very resistant to do. But when I went to this McKenzie clinic, and the guy's also a diplomat, he was like, you have to go do the diploma program. You'll never be satisfied if you don't. I found it hard to believe that I could get that much better, right? I was like, well, it's a chunk of money, right? And it was like, well, I don't feel, and imagine that our money, our Canadian dollars, it's average 30% less than the American dollar. So the program costs me 30% more than cost to American physio. Imagine a Brazilian physio, Jesus Christ. Those guys that done their heroes, I'm telling you, they are heroes. So I was like, oh, okay, man, but I'm not sure. But in the first year, I'm a very unsettled guy. I can't plateau. A plateau is very difficult for me. And I start plateauing. And I was like, oh, man, I'm going to do it. But I don't have the money. And I swear on my kid's life, I said, I don't have the money. That same week, I got an offer from my bank with a line of credit with super, super low, like a student kind of interest rate. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
It's a sign.
It's a sign. And I was like, man, you gotta be kidding me. It's just timing. What the heck? So I talked to my wife because we did have some money aside, and the money was initially to a down payment on the house, right? So it was a touchy subject. And I was like, and she said, man, I know you, and you are unsettled like crazy. If you don't do that, that's divorce. I can't stand you. I was like, yeah, that's right. I got to do it. So there we go. I did.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm sure that it did a great difference on your practice, right? So how was the experience? How was the diploma? I know there is like theoretical part first that you have to do, pass, and then the practical part. So
yeah.
How was that? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I know there were changes in the past year. We have so in my clinic, in the clinic I work for, we have me and the owner as diplomats, and we have two diplomats to be. They just finished their theoretical part of it. Mm-hmm. So I know the process had some changes. So I'll tell how was my experience in 2016 when I started. Mm-hmm. So in 2016 when I started, we had this theoretical part, which was a university semester, where it's divided by subject. So you have McKenzie approach, reliability, different classification systems, how to assess a paper, right? This is discussed in depth too. Discussing about treatment for tendinopathy. So it's a variety of subjects that involves musculoskeletal care, and that it's discussed evidence-based. It's very, very literate. So there's a lot of reading, lots of writing, lots of assessing, and it's you and a lot of other people, right? So you don't want to just come with excuse my language, but a crappy paper and show something that, internal validity, it's just out of the bounds, no working. So you really make sure that you do your due diligence and do the proper analysis and assessment of the paper. And then it's all high graded paper. So it's high level discussions. It's a very, very interesting thing. I really enjoy doing the theoretical part of that. And it was done at Dundee University in Scotland, where is a site as well for the diploma program. I think we have 3 sites that allows foreigners to come. You have others, you have in Australia, but it's only for Australians, New Zealand only for New Zealand, I think South Africa only for South Africans. But you have Scotland, which is open for anyone. You have Austin, which is open for anyone. And you have recently in the past year, Montreal also, which is open to anyone too. Done by my great friend Michael Dyke and Duke. They're great guys, really, really good. Mike was actually from the same cohort for the diploma program I am, and it's a great, great guy. So, and Montreal is a great, fantastic city. So for those that are planning to, maybe you, Mariana, planning to do.
I've been thinking.
Montreal is a great option. I mean, I loved Austin. Austin is a great city. You have very experienced mentors there, right? I was mentored by Chris Chase and Kim Green. They're excellent. The city is amazing. But Montreal is very special. But again, I'm biased, right? I'm sort of a Montrealer now after 10 years. So for me, it's a little biased opinion. But back to the diploma program. So you have that theoretical program, which is lots of discussions, lots of reading. And then you have to write 2 essays. You write the essay. If you pass, if you get a good grade, you move on to the practical component. The practical component, there's usually a waiting list as well, depending on the site you choose. Austin, there's usually a waiting list. But once that waiting list is gone, you go to the diploma program, the practical component. You do the practical component, and it's both of them. I mean, there's no stress-free part of it. And I mind you, they advise you to work part-time throughout the process. I was a full-time clinician all through the process. So, yes, and I had a small kid. It was tough as nail to accomplish that. I looking back now, I was like, how did I do it? But, well, hard work pays off. That's what they say, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And indeed it did. So I went to this diploma program. The diploma program, it's you have to be open-minded, right? Regardless of your level of experience. And ego sometimes can get in the middle of things, right? Because you're doing that for a while, and then sometimes you get some critics that they're always constructive, but sometimes you get a little, touched on your ego, saying, "Oh, I've done that forever. What are you saying?" Right? But anyways, you have to be open. You have to. So I went there engaged in being an open mind, open spirit for that. But the first time you're there, then you're there with the patient, and then your mentor is there when it's bored and writing stuff, and you're like, crap. The first mistake was my first patient. We were in the, because you pick up from maybe a clinician that was there prior to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got someone that was starting recovery of function. Recovery of function was something that I was not very used to do before the diploma program, because my patients, pain was gone, bang, they were gone. And I kind of didn't mind that back before I did the diploma program. Now I know it's a stupid thing I could ever done. But they said, okay, let's start recovery of function. The first thing I did was flexion and standing. Oh man, just kick it in. Said, no. Okay, so lie down, let's start. And I was like, red, flushed, right? And I was like,
Sweating.
oh, how can it be? And I had this roommate, my partner in crime there in Austin was Gaurav. Gaurav, he's a mastermind of MDT. The guy knows everything. The guy is so I was like, oh, and he was in the room with me. I was like, oh, come on there, you know. And I had this little sort of pressure on me because I got a beautiful letter of recommendation from Colin Davis, who's my biggest mentor in the MDT. So you know how Colin's experience and everybody looks up to him. I didn't want to make him look bad, right? So
yeah.
The first thing I do that stuff. But you know, I shook it off and I took that as a learning experience. I was there for that, right?
Yeah.
And then Kim came out, oh no, Eduardo, it's fine, you know, because she saw I was a little upset. And so she came, no, it's fine, you know. And I was like, but you know what, Kim? I didn't come here for taps on the shoulder. I came here for kicks on the nuts. So that's how it is, and that's how I'm gonna build up myself. There's one sentence, Mariana, that I truly believe, that I carry wholeheartedly with me. It's the illiterate of the 21st century is not the one that cannot read or write. It's the one that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I was through that process. I had learned, but it was time to unlearn some of my concepts and relearn. And if I couldn't open my spirit to that experience, I wouldn't have succeeded in the diploma program, which is very demanding, very demanding. So you have to find a valve of escape. Mine was running. I ran almost every day there. I ran what they call the turkey trot. I was there during Thanksgiving, and I have the turkey trot. It's an 8 kilometers run I did. It was fun as hell. So my experience on the diploma program was A+, and I would recommend to every clinician, everyone, even the ones that are most experienced, and they think there's nothing to be learned on the system anymore, go do the diploma program, because there's tons to learn. And you can only learn if you're inserted in that kind of environment. I was working elbow to elbow with the diplomat too, and I still learned. So it's the whole environment that inspire MDT, that you need to be inserted that for the whole 9 weeks to get that experience. So I recommend to everyone. If I had the money, I would do it again. Let's put that like that.
You're always learning, right? Like in the courses, when you start repeating, you always learn new things every time you see something. And I imagine that times 100, probably on diploma, that on that experience, emerge there and just breathing there, living there.
And that's an interesting thing, though, because I don't know if you know, but even the states you can do that too. Certified, they can give lab assistance to courses. So you can write the McKenzie Institute. Let's say they have a group of 25, 30, which is not in the States. It happens all the time. You can write the McKenzie Institute and say, listen, are you guys in need of assistance? Can I assist the course? And you can redo the courses as an assistant. So before I had the guts or the money or the guts to spend that money on the diploma program, that's what I was doing. I'll tell you, I probably had done maybe 5 times part A, 6 times B, and so on and so forth, doing that assistance. I was always assisting courses for Colin here, and I did assist in the States too when I was there. So I'm pretty sure, I know it doesn't happen like that in Brazil, but I'm pretty sure in the States it's no different than in here.
Nice. That's
so,
good
you know,
to know.
that experience of, it's not really what it's in the manuals that you can read every day. It's seeing the interaction of the instructor with the patients, different patients, assessing, treating. So you can learn quite a chunk of things by assisting those courses.
My favorite part is watching them treating the patients. That's amazing. That's cool. So I think, yeah, you're always learning. I think you should be always open to that. And I imagine how many new things, and like just to do everything step by step, as you said, like sometimes you skip steps, or you're used to do the way that you kind of decide that you're going to do. It may not be the right way to do, and you start doing that. And then for you, that's your truth. And sometimes
right.
It's not the truth. Yeah.
It's your truth, right?
Yeah, our truth.
The clear one.
Yeah.
And after you finish that practical component, after 6 months, you have to do the exam. And that's where things really catch up. It's really, really hard. It's really stressful. It's 2 days, and you have 3 clinical scenarios every day. It's a tough one. And in each clinical scenario, you have 2 like big names of the method. So I had, we did not have Helen, because Helen was handling other business that time. But I had Kathy, for instance, which known to be tough one on the exam. I had Richard Rosedale on my last exam, he was tough on me too, asking one question after the other. You know, that hard patient that has beliefs and questions about those beliefs. That was Richard on my exam. And I was like, doing that, I was like, why are you doing that to me, Richard? We're both Canadian, don't do that. and it was pressure. And so Colin didn't assess me for obvious reasons. That's a conflict of interest, right? I'm calling him up and down every time, so it wouldn't be fair. So he did not assess me. But I forgot, it's terrible. I forgot her name, but the instructor from Italy, she's a super nice one, but very experienced. So I had all the very experienced people from the method assessing me during the exam, and it was tough, very, very tough.
Yeah, so you better learn.
Yeah, you better do it, and you better do just once, because if you fail, you have to go back and do it again, and it's not easier the second time, right? So I know people had done twice the practical component and then 3 times the exam, not because they're not good enough, it's because it's tough, and you end up losing to yourself, because it's a nerve-wracking experience. I did sports competition a lot in my life, so I guess that when you do competition before that, I was super stressed. I slept 3 hours the night before my first exam, was super stressed, but when the situation comes, you know how to deal with that easier than someone who's dealing with that competitive kind of thing firsthand. So it was nerve-wracking, but I guess I did well.
Good. Very good. So I just have one more question about that. I know you've been talking a lot now. So you mentioned about your clinic. So you are McKenzie certified clinic. So I look on the website and I saw the names, and I was wondering, like, so you have to have diplomates, but just people that are diplomate, or you mentioned that you have some certified clinicians that are finishing the diploma. So how that works, like the title?
You have to have at least a Part A to work in that clinic, right? Because it's a certified. So if you don't have anything, I mean, it's going to be very hard for you to develop. So you need to be hired in that clinic. You need to have at least Part A. The clinic, I'm not an owner of the clinic, but the clinic is awesome. You work in the clinic, you get mentorship. I'm one of the mentees. I'm responsible to welcome the new clinicians to the clinic, and everybody goes through at least 8-week process of mentorship, where I'm there just like the diploma program with my wooden board and taking notes and correcting and doing technique labs. So we practice technique, we discuss the basic concepts and operational definitions, so they understand how the method operates. You participated in one of our clinical meetings. We do that once every 2 months, where I assess patients and then we discuss the clinical case. We do one of those every day with those new clinicians. So we go, the McKenzie form, it's a very structured one, and each step of it means something, especially on the subjective, especially regarding classification, direction, force. So I want them to understand that. So when they're filling out the form, that reasoning, it's a letter that, okay, that cannot be a dysfunction because, man, it's only 2 weeks. It's functions out of the tape. So I'm only dealing with either derangement or others. At the end, that funnel needs to lead them to have fewer hypotheses to work on the objective part. So we train them very diligently, very extensively on that regards. And and it's all offered by the clinic during your working hours, and it's paid for.
Nice.
So, which is really,
Very
really
nice.
rare. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. It probably helps a lot the people that are just starting to work on the clinics. A lot of mentoring and learning.
Yeah,
Nice.
if you're interested in McKenzie, there's only 2 places to go here in Montreal, which is the clinic I work for and the clinic that offers the diploma program. It belongs to Dimitri Dragutin, another diplomat, very, very knowledgeable guy. So in that clinic, you have 3 diplomats that are out of bounds, really. They're really good. So you have 2 places to go. In any of those 2 places that you work, you have a good mentorship regarding the mechanical diagnosis and therapy.
Nice, very nice. Good to know. Yeah, I don't think there are a lot of those clinics. I've been doing my research on the institute, and I saw there are a few certified clinics. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I joined the clinic 5 years ago, and it's been a ride, really. I really like how Caleb Catcher, which is the owner, how he manages the clinic and what he accepts. Because the mission of the clinic is to provide, obviously, good service to patients, provide a good lifestyle, allow a good lifestyle for clinicians, so nobody go burning out right and left, right? So you think you're seeing too many patients, you go talk to Caleb and say, Caleb, I think I'm seeing too many patients. Okay, we're gonna cut that out a few of your patients. So everything's talkable and manageable, so you remain happy. You cannot offer a good service if you're not happy. And mentorship, one of the biggest benefits of the clinic, it's knowledge. You will get more knowledgeable into McKenzie, into mechanical diagnosis and therapy if you work with us. You will have it because that's our focus. The mission of the clinic is to divulgate, to spread the word about the MDT.
That's amazing. Yeah, very nice. Okay, Eduardo, I have just now the final 3 questions that I ask every guest. So the first one, what is your favorite source of information? Do you have any paper or study, anything that you like in particular?
I don't have any paper that I like in particular. I enjoyed the last SI joint paper that was published. I unfortunately forgot the author. It's changing the speech. I don't remember the exact words. Changing the speech on how we explain SI joint dysfunctions, right? The up slips, down slips, posterior rotation, anterior rotation. Those things, they don't happen, right? And I always had that feeling that it doesn't. I remember in my manual therapy course, one of them done in a big institute in Brazil, that the instructor did an assessment of a Gillet test for an SI joint positional test, and then we asked him to leave the room. I got in the room, tested, was 2 different opposite responses, right? So, I mean, obviously he has more experience, and maybe I'm right. Who knows? Who the heck knows, right? So I always had that feeling since early in my career, and I like this paper. It puts out in a good one, but I'm only mentioning this paper because it's recent that I read. I probably had other ones. I read at least 5 papers a week, so I don't want to mention one and then remember, oh no, that was the other one, that was the one. I would like to mention a book that I really like, which is Greaves' Modern Manual Therapy. You have many volumes throughout the history of physiotherapy. Greaves was an important manual therapy. He did a lot for our profession. In the last book, we have 2 chapters about MDT, one for the spine, one for the extremities. So I think it's a good, very good book with solid information, with solid references, with a multitude of subjects that every musculoskeletal physiotherapy needs to know at least have to have a basic knowledge about. So I strongly recommend the Greaves' Modern Manual Therapy.
Okay. I'm going to make sure they write down everything on the show notes so everybody can check later. Okay,
I
and
think
then
the last edition is called Greaves Modern Musculoskeletal Therapy, to get away a little from manual therapy, I guess.
okay.
Everybody's
Okay.
trying to get away from it. No, just kidding, guys. The manual therapists out there.
Telehealth now.
Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
how a lot of my manual therapists said, you cannot treat hands off. And they're all doing web rehab now. And I'm like, oh, okay, what happened to you cannot treat hands off? I've been doing
Yeah.
that for 12 years, and you guys criticizing me. Where are you guys now? Taking
Yeah.
your butt. That's fine. I understand. I hope they understand better now, right? And they get that. So times for changes. Time is for changes
I
in
agree.
multiple levels.
I agree. I think a lot of things are gonna change.
Mm-hmm. The way we relate to each other, the way we see physical contact, the way we see our relatives, how we miss and how important they are in our lives. So it's time for changes. If we don't change, then it's official. We're as stupid as a dunk, or even worse, right? So
we have to adapt. You have to adapt. Yeah.
You do have.
Yeah. Second question, Eduardo. What would be the best advice you can give to the clinicians that are starting their careers?
Okay. The illiterate of the 21st century is not the one that cannot read or write, is the one that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's the best advice I can give a young physio. Be ready to shred all your certificates in face of new evidence. Be ready, because it will come the time, right? We have been, we the McKenzie therapists, we have been fortunate that the scrutiny of research has backing us up, right? But I tell you that, Mariana, with my heart open, I'm willing to rip all my certificates in face of good and valid evidence. And the therapist, the good one, is the one that does active listening to your patients. The truth is within the patient. And Cyril said that many, many years ago. The truth is within the patient. And I remember I took this course with this Australian guy, Kim Robinson, very, very smart guy. And he told me this, and I carry that with me up to these days. If you listen to your patients, they'll tell you what to do. If you listen more, they will, if you listen to your patient, they'll tell what they have. But if you listen further, they will tell you what to do and cut your work to half. It's not about me, it's about them. So I make sure I actively listen to them, and I'm open to educate them gradually to as much as they're open to, and make their lives easier. Commitment to the mission of making people's life better, more functional, and open spirit. If you have that in you, you have all the tools it takes to be a great physio. The technical part, it comes with years of experience and hard work. If you're willing to put on, you're good to go. You're good to go. If you don't have it, then you have to rethink your priorities. Either you're going to do major changes with, I don't believe, if you don't have that in you, it's very hard to bring it out and to make it flourish. But if you don't have it, think if physiotherapy is the profession for you. But if you have it, those two things, I think you have 80% what it takes to be a great physiotherapist.
Yeah, I loved everything you said. I think it makes all the sense. Yeah, I agree 100%, everything. And the last question, what personal abilities or qualities that you think are important to become a successful physical therapist?
Yeah, we kind of answered that, but open mind. You have to be open mind. You can't be, somebody will tell you eventually, I'm a McKenzie therapist, right? But somebody, every now and then, somebody can say, listen, somebody pushed on my back and it helped. I will not ignore that information. That patient had a past experience that was positive. Can I recreate that experience? I'm not close to that. I'm not going to explain to him that I'm moving the facets, and it's a whole different scenario for me, right? But I do think it's mechanical, and we're changing things. If I'm pushing the vertebrae in one direction, I don't know. All I know is that if I push it in there, you get better. Whatever happens inside, it's way out of my understanding. It can be the way I see in the books, which is taking consideration a very healthy and no problem spine, or I can take in consideration what you're telling me. I'd rather take in consideration what you're telling me, because the truth is within you. So you have to be open spirit. You can never be closed mind. Just so you know how truthful I am to those principles, I'm changing now my career, and I'm going to work in a hospital where I will be seeing cardiorest patients, neurological patients. I haven't seen them for the past 13 years, but I feel I need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. I'll still keep my foot in the clinic. We have the projects that my 2 months thing that we do, I'll keep doing. We have research projects that I'm headed. I'm giving also still mentorship in my free hours. I'm still very involved with all those things we talked, but I am throwing myself in something that I haven't touched in the past 13 years, only out of the will to learn and learn and relearn.
I think it's we never can let ourselves get comfortable, right? Because if you are uncomfortable, you are learning. You have to be always moving, doing something different, because on the time that you are comfortable, you think you know everything. You kind of stop
movement
your growth
comes out of
learning.
unsettledness, right? You need to be unsettled, because if you're just settled, that comfort zone, that's fine. I'm not criticizing. People that's fine. You choose the way you want to live, but I am an unsettled guy. I can't stay in the same place. You see, even when we're talking, I'm moving, I can't. It's part of my nature. I cannot. So at a certain point, I was like, okay, I love the McKenzie approach. It made me the physio and even the person I am, because at a certain point, everything gets all mixed up inside you. So it made me the person I am, with my character of providing independence to people, being that by therapy or by advice in other fields. It's my nature now. So I love doing that. But I had that unsettledness saying, Eduardo, you got to do something else now. You have to. And it's funny because my first question when I got inside the clinic, I took a week off after my diploma program. And that's another advice. Take a week off after. You need it. So I got inside the clinic. I looked at my boss and said, so you liked it? I said, I liked it. So now what? Where do we go from here? Right? And he said, well, now it's projects. I want to bring projects and how we're going to use our knowledge to bring new clinicians and make them. And that's the mentorship program was born out of that. That thing that you participate was born out of that. Out of being unsettled. I cannot just see patients. I have to be involved in a multitude of things.
Yeah, I think that's the way of growth, right? You have to always be seeking something different. When you're too comfortable, you're probably not growing. So
no, it's just vegetating. You gotta flourish, right? That is the whole thing.
Eduardo, thank you so much for all the information, everything that our conversation about Canada, comparing everything, talking about diploma. It was amazing for me. I learned a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of our listeners learned too. And where people can find more information about you and about your work.
First, Mariana, I want to say that it was a huge pleasure. I talk a lot. I hope you're probably not expecting that. I talk a lot, and my tongue just goes on and on. I don't have any TMJ problem, so it goes on and on. So thank you for giving me the space. It was really a pleasure. When you contacted me, it was like, oh, that's nice. I love doing this type of stuff. So it was a huge pleasure for me being here talking to you and to people that follow you on your channel. If people want to know a little more about me, the work I do in the clinic, you can always access the site of the clinic. It's physiosa.ca. And you'll find my information, my contact information. So if you watch this video and you have further questions about the diploma program, feel free to write me, to shoot me an email. It will be a pleasure to answer any question or clarify any doubts.
Good. And I forgot to mention that you do webinars, right? Every month you said on your clinic. I watched it.
I did it. It was a new experience. I'm not doing every month. I just did that one. We're assessing what we're going to do with that. So there's two possibilities. Either we're going to make it available on the website of the clinic, or will become a monthly thing that we'll talk about different things. So still studying what's going to be of that.
Okay, nice. But people have the website of the clinic that I'm going to put so they can check there and see what's going on. Okay, awesome. Perfect. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and help us here with all this information. So I'm very glad to have you here. And I wish you a good rest of your day. It's night, it's late. We've been here Friday night talking about everything we
tomorrow,
loved.
baby. I work tomorrow. 8
Oh
a.m.
my God, Saturday.
I have a vestibular patient at 8 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh my God.
A vestibular patient takes an appointment Saturday at 8 a.m. You know, it's a tough one. So there you go.
He's needing. The patient is needing. So good luck. Yeah. Okay. So thank you again. And
thank you. I hope to see you on our meetings on the web to discuss patients. You're very welcome. I love to have you guys there. So I hope the next one you're there too.
Thank you. Yeah, I was in one before, and I probably will always learn.
Give us feedback too for things you like, things you don't. It's a dynamic process. We want to get better, and it's something to share knowledge. So it needs to be something that suits everybody.
Yeah. It's just adding, sharing. That's what we need. Get our profession stronger.
You got it. You said it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eduardo.